Today, my guest is Dan Handford. He is the founder of Handford Capital. He's a real estate investor, a multifamily syndicator. He was trained as a chiropractor, and he's also the host of the podcast Tough Decisions for Entrepreneurs. And today we're going to talk with him about his entrepreneurial journey and his newfound multifamily investor nation. But before we do that, quick reminder, if you like the show, please let us know. You can do this. You can like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from our listeners. And if you would like to see our handsome guest, you can go to our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Commercial Real Estate Pro Network, and check it out there. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dan Handford to CREPN Radio.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Darren, for having me. Looking forward to the interview today.
Well, I'm really looking forward to talking to you. We've kind of acquainted here a little bit over the last week or so, and a little bit I've gotten to know is you've got a compelling story with that's full of entrepreneurial drive and stories and on and on. Before we jump into it, if you could take a minute and just share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I've pretty much been an entrepreneur ever since I was born. And, one story I always like to tell is that, my mom always told me that, when I was born, I was actually negotiating with the doctor on which butt cheek he was going to slap to wake me, to get me to start crying. So, but I've always had an entrepreneurial itch to me. And I remember growing up and selling candy bars, doing, lawn services, doing pressure cleaning and selling Cutco knives and, you name it, I've probably tried to sell it and have sold it. And, that's just kind of how I've been ever since I was born, truly. And I, over the years, have just, built some businesses. I've had some failures, just like everybody else has started something and just didn't pan out. And so I have some scars just to show for that. But one of the things that I did is I went to school to become a chiropractor. And when I got out of school back in 2010, started my own practice, started doing chiropractic. And then a couple years into it, morphed into doing what's called regenerative medicine. So I hired in some medical staff to come into the office and do that. And then eventually, because of the demand for it, I decided to stop doing any chiropractic or even some of the physical therapy that we were doing at the time in the office so that we could focus on the regenerative medicine. And it would also allow me to be able to step out of the practice and pursue some other interests that I had. And so because we did that, we were able to make us have a smaller footprint in the office, and we were able to expand. And we set out to have a goal to have 5 clinics built out in 2 years, 24 months. And I made a commitment to my staff that that's what we were going to do. And we successfully did it, all 5 offices, in 18 months. So we got it done earlier than we had originally planned. And I'm the type of person that likes to build and likes to grow and likes to see things expand. And we actually are in the process of opening up a couple of more of those offices here in the next couple of months or so. There's a plan in place for that. They're all located here in South Carolina, and they do regenerative medicine. So we have a little under 50 people that work for us across those 5 clinics. And we do prolotherapy, PRP, that platelet-rich plasma therapy, stem cell therapy, and other non-surgical orthopedic treatments. So if you have a joint and you have arthritis or some sort of a pain or condition there, sports medicine, we're doing that in those offices as well. So that's kind of my background as of how I've gotten to where I am now. And then earlier this year, I stepped down as CEO, put a good person in there as the CEO. I'm still the president. I still look at financial reports on a weekly basis. I have what I call my Monday morning report, so I can make sure that the business is continually doing well. And I have a once a month corporate meeting with all of my key people in the practice to make sure that they can ask me questions, and I can continue to project my vision that I have for that. And that way, it allowed me to step down from doing that and being in the day to day to be able to focus on the multifamily real estate. And that's really what I've been doing for this entire year, and I've had a lot of fun with it. And then, as you mentioned earlier, we recently launched the Multifamily Investor Nation group, which I'm really excited about it, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how fast it's going to grow. We've only had it open for about 10 days, And we launched it about 10 days ago, and we already have 24 groups, and we're a little over 700 members in that meetup group. So I can talk a little bit about that more as well, but that's kind of my background. I do also have some other things that I do, some other online businesses and things like that. And but I'll let you kind of direct it how you want me to go. So.
No, there's a lot to unpack there. And I think one of the things that kind of struck me about your story about you go to school, you get your degree, you're a chiropractor, and by virtue of that, you are an entrepreneur. You're going to go out and you're going to start your own practice, and you get into that. And I think what really strikes me is the fact that you stopped being a chiropractor and you recognized another another service or something that you could bring in that was, I'm assuming is more profitable and that. I think for me, the ability to stop doing something that you started with a goal, like a vision. This is where we're going. We're going to do this. I graduated. I mean, you did all the steps. I would love to hear about your process for making that determination, because I think that in real estate, a lot of times I think people, myself included, I started with a single family, and I thought another single family and another single family, and not really being open to looking at what else is out there. How can I better expand, grow my real estate portfolio? So I'd love to hear you speak to that a little bit, if you could.
Sure. So the biggest thing I would say is two things. So number one, I've told myself all along the way that, I'm a believer. I'm a Christian myself, and I believe that, I need to trust in him and allowing him to guide and direct me in what I do. And so I pray a lot, and I talk to the Lord, and I'm like, listen, these are the steps that I'm taking. If these are not the right steps, please put a door up. Put a wall up, make it clear to me that that's not where you want me to go. But as long as the doors continue to open up, I'll continue to pass through those doors. And that's what I did all the way throughout chiropractic college until I got out. And even when I got out, I still do that today. But I think the biggest, and then those doors continue to open up. Now I look at it now because I'm not practicing chiropractic. I only adjust my family and my friends, but I charge them double, right?
Yeah.
Double of nothing is nothing. So I charge them double.
Right.
But I looked back and I'm like, well, why did I go through all those years of school to just do what I'm doing now? But when I look back, every single one of those years were stepping stones to where I am today. And so I went through those steps, and it got me to where I am today. But the second thing I would say is that as I've continued to build the practice and making those hard decisions of removing the core competency that you were started the practice with, which was the chiropractic, I always look at it in these types of decisions. Number one, anybody who knows me knows I make decisions very quickly. So multifamily investor nation, just to kind of go back to that, I think I just mentioned to you in the green room, it was 10 days ago that I was sitting down at night and I don't even know what I was thinking about. I was just thinking about this whole multifamily space and how to improve things and how to make things better. I didn't want to start a coaching program. I just don't have the time, space, and energy for that, because it does take a lot of energy and time. But I wanted to grow to create this group, and I came up with the name Multifamily Investor Nation, decided that night, launched it. And then, of course, 10 days later, we got 24 groups across the country and over 700 members, and it's continuing to grow every single month. Every single day, actually. And so I'm excited about that. But even into the business side of things, I always look at decisions and make them very quickly, but I always look at the decision and go, worst case scenario, could we go back to what we were doing? So for example, if you have this chiropractic that we're doing in the offices and we wanted to take it out, one of the determinations on that was, well, if we take it out and make an announcement and stop it and things go down or something happens and we have to add it back, how hard is that? Could we add it back? And I think for your listeners that, their headspace right now, some of them might be, I'm working another job, I'm in a W-2 position, working for somebody else, and I'd like to be able to get out, and I'd like to be able to work out on my own. And sometimes you have that, paralysis by analysis, if you will, of when should I leave? A good rule of thumb is about 6 months reserves. And that way, if for some reason you step out, you go full force, full time into this real estate stuff for 6 months, and it's just not working out, guess what? You could always go back, You can always go back, but you'll never know until you actually make that leap, until you actually make that determination that, yes, I'm going to do it. Because just think about it. If you had all that time, energy, and effort that you're putting into your W-2 position and your W-2 job to fully and solely focus on real estate, whether it be multifamily, self-storage, single family, whatever you're in, do you not think that you can make that salary that you're making in your W-2 position? Now, there's obviously other determinations and other factors that have to go into play. I'm married. I have 4 children. They're all small. I have a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 9-month-old. And so when we make decisions, we also have to balance that and say, okay, well, I'm married and have 4 kids. I'm not just single. It's not easy for me,
Right.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about this businessman that, he's like 32 years old, and he's got a $35 million company, and he built it all from scratch. And I leaned over to him and I said, yes, but he's not married and he has no kids.
Right.
So that could definitely be a determining factor, or not a determining factor, but a limiting factor in somebody making a decision to go forward with it. And you do have to have your spouse on board with that decision, because it is not one of those decisions that you want to force upon somebody else. And I would say that it's very important to have, if you are married, have your spouse or your partner on board with you, so that you guys can go in on it together. And even if that person decides to stay in their W-2 job and you go in and do something full time with real estate, just make that determination and do it, and do what I call relentlessly implementing. I'm actually writing a book right now called Relentless Implementation, and it all talks about the whole reasons why and how you get to that mindset of being a relentless implementer in the things that you're wanting to accomplish.
No, I love that. You were talking about the keep going until the door closes. I think one of the things that when I talk with others, I feel like there are doors that are closed that maybe one doesn't recognize that they're closed, and there's like this sense of like, we're almost through. It's like it's not a very thick door. I think we can get through here, kind of thing. Do you have any kind of a test to recognize if something's stopped? Because I keep looking at just the thought process of if you were trained to go this way, you were headed that way, and just to again, as you mentioned, these were all kind of a stepping stones to where you are now, but just that's a huge shift just to undo it. And obviously you talked about, you've got your 6-month reserves, and you've got your family on board and all these things, and you've got your contingency plan that you can come back to it. But it's still just that kind of a leap there. Is that basically, that's kind of packing your parachute there? If you got those things on, you're ready to jump?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in that God gives us the desires of our hearts. And so if he gives you a desire to do something and you go full force and going to do that, then you will find out whether or not that's the right path or not. Because as you go down that path, if bottlenecks start to occur, then you know that those are doors that are closing. Now, I think it depends on, when you talk about doors and opening and closing and things like that, there's so many different analogies when it has to do with doors, that, you can be one that looks at doors and goes, well, what if all the doors are closed, but 3 of them are locked and 2 of them are unlocked? How do I know which one I should go through? Right. And, that's a good analogy and a good demonstration. But my suggestion to you would be start trying to open the doors.
Right.
If you have 5 opportunities and you don't know which one to pursue, go start pursuing one. And if the door is locked, then you're going to find that out. But guess what? If you just sit there and have paralysis by analysis and never actually try to do anything, when you're 60, 70 years old, you're going to have regrets going, I didn't try that, or I should have done that.
Right.
And you don't want to get to that point in your life where you've looked back and you go, man, I wish I would have done that. I want to look back in my life and go, man, I made a lot of mistakes. I tried to open up a lot of doors and a lot of them didn't open. They were locked tight. But I at least tried those doors and I have no regrets. It actually goes back to even in treatment. When I was doing treatment for patients, our clinic was focused primarily on serving people that have really serious disc herniations and disc bulges and disc problems in their back and in their neck. And I always would talk to my patients and say, you could consider surgery. That is an option for that. That is a door that you could open. But once you open up that door, it's going to be hard to go back. You can't undo a knife, right?
Right.
But if you try some chiropractic, you do some decompression, some non-surgical decompression therapy, you don't want to go have surgery and then look back and go, man, I'm worse now after the surgery than I did did before, and I didn't try everything that I could conservatively beforehand. Then if everything does fail conservatively, you can actually successfully go into doing surgery and look back and go, well, I know I tried everything. So even though I did surgery and I'm not any better, I tried everything, and you don't have any regrets after that.
No, I like it. That's good. Let's talk a little bit about your real estate journey here. So you've got the multifamily investor nation, but to this point, tell me a little bit about the real estate investing you've done.
Sure, sure. So, I have been obviously we have our 5 medical offices. We've done medical office stuff along the way. I think in the green room we had talked about, I haven't actually bought those and syndicated them or done anything like that. But with the multifamily space, I've been studying it for about the last year and a half to 2 years. And then when I stepped down as CEO of my organization to just become the president and have a little bit lower day-to-day responsibilities so I can focus on the real estate full time. My main reason for really wanting to go into it full time was for the tax advantages of it. And when you have high net worth individuals that are writing 6 and 7 figure checks to the government, that's just the government's portion. They like to find ways to be able to offset that income, that passive income. And so that's one of the main reasons why I like it. I also have other people that I've consulted with, because I also have a consulting company where I consult with physicians across the country and do some of the things that I'm doing or that I have done in my clinics. And so a lot of times they'll come to me and we'll build relationships. And, we recently just did a deal where we're doing a deal right now where it's a $48 million purchase. We're partnering with another syndicator with this, and we're raising $22 million. And I had one of my physician investors that I had consulted with over the years, and he actually was able to invest some money into that deal. And so it's really for me this year has been really about trying to build my portfolio of larger multifamily assets. My focus has been in the 150 plus units or more, minimum about 10 million upwards to about 30, 35, 40 million, somewhere around in there when I'm doing them on my own. And so we are currently right now focused on raising capital for other syndicators and also building our investor database for when we are raising money for when we're partnering on another deal, but also when we're actually doing our own deals. And so we're focused primarily on 5 markets. Charlotte's our number 1 market. Then we do Raleigh, Durham, Atlanta, Jacksonville, and Orlando. And then we also have some partners that are out in the Texas market. So we've actually done one in a 264 unit deal in Houston, Texas. And then the other ones are in the Dallas-Fort Worth market.
Got it. So as far as the structure, you're coming in on are you participating as a general partner then as a fundraiser? Okay.
Yep.
And so are you getting into any kind of the underwriting, or are you working more, it sounds like more of the fundraising, kind of the investor relations?
So I'm kind of involved in as much of that as I can. So obviously with the underwriting, we're underwriting at least probably half a dozen to a dozen deals a week.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very, very high deal flow with all the brokers that we've built relationships with and all the markets that we're in. And we're actually next week, we're going to be spending 2 days. We're going to be going to Atlanta and having a morning Atlanta meetup from our multifamily investor nation group. And then in the morning, we're going to meet with some brokers. And then in the afternoon, we're going to drive to Ocala, Florida, and actually spend some time with an investor, one of my investors, and go to dinner with him. And then the next morning we have a meetup in Orlando. And so we'll with our multifamily investor nation group. And then that morning in Orlando, we're going to be meeting with some brokers. Then in the afternoon, we'll drive to Jacksonville, which is about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive, and then meet with some brokers there in the afternoon in Jacksonville. And then that night in Jacksonville, have another meetup with multifamily investor nation, and then head back to Columbia. So
that's going to be busy. Is that 1 day, did you say, or is that?
That's 2 days. That's going to be 2 days. But I like to pack it in there like that and get things done, because I don't like to. The deal flow starts when you start to put your face in front of these brokers. That's what I've found. You can call them up, you can send them an email, but until you actually put your face in front of them and they know it's a real person and that you tell them your story about why you're doing what you're doing, that's when that deal flow really starts to come in. And my partner and I, Brandon, he actually is the boots on the ground type of person for me. So when we have a property, we've underwrote the property, he'll go and actually go look at the property. He has a a background in construction, as well as he's an independent insurance adjuster. And so he actually goes in and can do almost like a pre-LOI inspection, to kind of make sure that the property is a good enough property for us to take down. And so, he's getting overwhelmed because right now with the hurricane that just came through South Carolina, he's got a lot of insurance claims that he's having to go take care of, as well as go look at some of these properties.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. So the markets you're focused on right now, basically, it sounds like the Southeast. You've got your investor nation, and you've got, as an extension of that, it sounds like you've also then in those markets, you've got broker relations. You're getting in front of brokers, you're getting in front of investors. And I didn't write down the numbers, but I thought I heard you say, is there 400 units that you guys are under contract, or?
Yes, about 398.
398 units.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Got
398 right now. They're under contract, and our goal is to try to get at least one more locked up before the end of the year. But we'll see how it goes as far as our bids. So it's definitely very competitive, and we have some very good underwriting people on our team. So I'm the type of person that I don't like to do the day-to-day, like punch in the numbers in the spreadsheet, but I do like to see the underwriting when it's done and say and try to figure out, well, what can we do to make this deal work? Not trying to fudge the numbers, but can we reduce expenses here, or can we modify this here, or can we add this to the interior of the units, or what can we do to really make the property produce more cash flow to make the deal work even better for our investors?
No, that's the name of the game, is take somebody else's quote problem and polish it, or make it something that's a top performer there and a winner for your investors. Let's talk a little bit about Multifamily Investor Nation. So you said you've got, was it 24 groups. You're 10 days old, and you've got, did you say 700 members?
Yeah, a little over 700 members. I think it was like 720 or 730 the last time I checked. Now, by the time your audience is listening to this, if they go look at it, it'll probably be well over 1,000 and hopefully over 30 or 40 groups. So,
no, it's an incredible launch growth there. Talk to tell us a little bit about what your vision is for Multifamily Investor Nation.
Sure. So, I've been asked, are you trying to start your own coaching program? And no, I'm not. I don't have the time, the energy, or the headspace to be able to do that. My goal is really threefold. So, number one, I wanted to be able to provide a platform where we can provide some of the knowledge that we're learning to a quality group of multifamily investors. And so we created Multifamily Investor Nation to be able to have that high quality database of multifamily investors so that we can provide some education. Like last night, we just did a webinar to our group on raising private capital, how to get in front of high net worth individuals and build relationships with them to be able to find investors so that when you actually have a deal and you can take it down, you'll be able to do that. We have another one coming up soon on cost segregation. We have another one coming up on whether or not you should do your self-manage your properties or whether you should hire property management. And so we're trying to bring in not just myself, but also other experts into the webinars to be able to create a platform so that we can start to learn from each other and learn about various topics. Because there are so many new people getting into this right now that there's a thirst, there's a hunger for knowledge, and we want to be able to be that resource, be able to provide as much of that for them as possible. So that's the first goal. The second goal is to be able to create local live meetup times. And so I like these to be kind of informal so that it's easier for the co-organizer. So if you go to meetup.com and search for the Multifamily Investor Nation group, you'll see all 24 dots on the map for our group. And so if you see on there, there's a dot, well, we are looking for co-organizers in other markets. So if you find in your market that we don't have a dot, or maybe you want to start a second meetup in your area, that's perfectly fine. A place like LA can handle more than just one meetup group. It's so large. So if you're looking at that map and you want to help with that, let me know. And I'd be glad to talk with you. And so the second reason is to really build a network of local meetups of these high quality multifamily investors to be able to continue to build each other up and learn from each other. And guess what? Those are the types of meetups where you get into a room full of multifamily investors where you can find partners. You can find people to actually help you with your deals and build your team. And that's really what this business is. It's a team sport. It's very hard to do everything yourself. So if you want to do everything yourself, you might as well get out of the game. You might as well go do something different, right? Go do single family if you want to do it all on your own. If you want to, when you start to get into these larger apartments, you got to have a team built out. You cannot do it all. And so that's really what those are for. And then the third thing that we have the Multifamily Investor Nation group for is to have meetups at larger events. So instead of us taking on the expense of going to these larger meetups and not meetups, putting on larger events, 100, 200, 1,000 people, we're going to be trying to put up networking opportunities and times at other events. So when like we have an event coming up right now in Nashville with Jake and Gino, and we're going to be putting up, we rented out 5 golf bays at Top Golf, and we're going to go have 30 people there we're going to go and just network and just have some fun. And it's just informal. So there's no speaker, there's no nothing. It's just, get there, start to, enjoy some time in an informal setting. And then these meetups that we're doing in like Jacksonville and Orlando that I mentioned, and Atlanta, these are again informal. So we're setting up a time and go meet at a Panera Bread or a Starbucks and just go network and talk with each other for about an hour to hour and a half, and really try to solidify some of the education that you're learning and get yourself in front of from the webinars, and then get in front of some people that are doing it right now. The more you can surround yourself with people that are doing this and talking the lingo, the better you're going to become yourself. And then when you start to have investors talking to you and asking you questions, you can be more confident, because investors will only invest with you if they know, like, and trust you.
No, that's great. I love the 3 points there. I mean, and I think so much of what I see, it seems like there's some sort of a virtual element to it, where people are online and there's a lot of connections that are happening. But I think that local piece is, where you actually are in the same room and as they say, belly to belly, or you're able to get to know somebody and, like I said, form your team and go from there. Makes a lot of sense. So I applaud you for that, and looking forward to participating. I know next week we've got one coming up here in Portland. So
yep,
looking forward to that. Dan, if there was one thing you'd like the listeners to take away from today's conversation, how would you sum that up?
I would say the running theme that I've kind of seen throughout this entire interview is how do you take the next steps? How do you get over those between the ear obstacles of going and actually doing what you've been wanting to do, and making sure that you set up a plan into place. And then once you get to that plan, once you start to implement that plan, relentlessly implement that plan to get yourself to the next level, and then just constantly go through that cycle. Because when you start to make those decisions, these decisions continue from this point forward. They don't just, you don't just like, all right, I'm gonna quit my job and go do full multifamily real estate full time. It's not like all the decisions stop at that point. Now you're going to open yourself up to a whole other world of decisions that you're going to have to constantly be making on a daily basis. You have to be able to make those decisions, and you have to be able to relentlessly implement those decisions as well.
I love it. Where can listeners go if they'd like to connect and find or learn more?
Sure. So I would say there's 3 different ways you can get a hold of us. So obviously we're on social media, so you can find us on Facebook or LinkedIn. Those are our 2 main platforms that we use. If you want to get more information about the Multifamily Investor Nation, you can go to Facebook. We have a private group called Multifamily Investor Nation. You can go there and apply to join. And then you can also go to meetup.com to find our Multifamily Investor Nation group there. And then the last thing is our podcast. If you want to listen to one of our podcasts that my wife and I do for entrepreneurs, it's called Tough Decisions for Entrepreneurs. Wherever you're listening to this, you can find us on whatever podcasting platform, or even on YouTube. And then if you're an investor or you want to jump on a call and see if there's some opportunities for you to join with our team and partner with us, you can go to handfordcapital.com. That's HAND, like your hand, and then Ford like the vehicle. So handfordcapital.com.
Got it. Dan, I've really enjoyed today's talk, and I want to say thanks for taking the time, and hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Darren. I appreciate it.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, you can let us know. We'd love to get your like, share, and your comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.